On the broadcast tonight, survivors of the Mandera bus attack relive the moments of terror as a new survey by Ipsos indicates that a majority of Kenyans are not satisfied with law enforcement's response to crime. Good evening from the KTN News Center. I'm Ben Kitili. KTN Prime begins now. The top stories tonight.
Walikuwa wamesema washuke watu wa Kristo. Told us to shoot, to come down. We refused. We were shielding our brothers.
Victims of Mandera attack relive their ordeal in the hands of Shabaab attackers. Kibra outshines the rest of constituencies in CDF management.
Hakuna faida yoyote tutakayopata kwa kugawanyika, kwa kuweka chuki baina yetu.
Deputy President William Ruto's mission to rope in Western region.
Mtaka sisi anapozaliwa atapata kama nyumba zetu ziko sawa.
Mud huts get a facelift in Kakamega ahead of Christmas. Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter is William Sila. It has been reported as a tragedy with a twist. Indeed, the latest Mandera attack by suspected Shabaab militants was different. The Muslim passengers on the bus under attack shielded their Christian compatriots. And today, KTN's Sharon Momanya reports on the witness accounts of two people who were injured during yesterday's attack in Mandera.
At the Mandera County Referral Hospital, Abdul Rashid Aden, a student in Mandera, is nursing injuries. The brutal attackers shot him 4 times in the back.
Kama wewe ni Muislamu ulikuwa unasali ngapi dhuhur? Na yule ulikuwa umesema umechukua kwa conductor. Mwambie jamaa dhuhur unasali sanga ngapi? Na yeye alikuwa amesema hajui hivyo. Amekataa kusoma. Tena umetoroka umepata moja.
And right opposite him is a man who is now described as a hero by the rest. Salah Farah, a teacher at a Mandera secondary school, is one of the Muslim passengers who shielded the non-Muslims that were being singled out by the suspected Shabaab attackers.
They told us to shoot, to come down. We refused. We were shielding our brothers. In fact, that person who died had given me because he was standing in the bus from Nairobi up to Mandera. He was coming to Mandera. So he had a bag, that one he carried for a laptop. It was with me. I was holding for him. Then what happened is that in that process now they started shot firing, and I got an injury.
A bus from the Maka fleet of buses that was traveling to Mandera from Nairobi was attacked Monday morning with Shabaab militants claiming responsibility.
Walikuwa gari, walipiga marisasi, gari kasimama, wakaambia watu wote washuke chini. Yenyewe watu wote walikuja wakashuka chini. Kushuka chini wakapelekwa side moja.
But it is the act of a group of Muslims on the bus who protected non-Muslim passengers by refusing to be split into groups that caught the heart of many. This, Muslim leaders say, is a step in defeating the militia whose tact has largely been to divide the nation on religious lines.
Kuna msichana mmoja alikuwa msichana wa Don Kenya. Yenyewe alifunikwa hii buibui ile ya kichwa. Sasa kakae pia kama Muislamu. Wakaenda side vile walishuka wote. Waislamu walikuja wakasema hapana, hao watu wote ni Waislamu.
Wamefanya kitendo ambacho kwamba ni mafundisho halisi ya Uislamu. Uislamu unataka tuishi kwa amani, tuishi na jirani kwa usalama, kuweza kumnusuru mwenzako anapodhulumiwa.
Members of the Mandera County Assembly who are attending a training here in Nairobi want the national government to reinforce security along the northeastern Kenyan border.
We are strongly asking the government, the national government, to provide security. And if it has failed, I will think and I will say that we could ask help, maybe from the UN or from other countries to come and secure the borders. because this can't go on. Every day there are people who are killed in Mandera County.
Some months ago, the government have mobilized all machineries of NYS in order to create a wall in Mandera through to the Lamu. Still, nothing is ongoing, and we need the government to start fast-tracking in order to protect the lives of Kenyans.
It is the moral responsibility also of the local communities to also share informations with the security agencies so that those kind of issues and the problem that is facing especially Mandera County to be solved once for all.
The national government had talked of plans to construct a protective wall along the Somalia border. It is unknown how effective this will be in fortifying security in the area, nor when the project will begin.
But here, we also have made important improvement in the response. Out of the collaboration of the security agencies, we have made a great inroad in the fight against terrorism.
2 people were killed in the Monday attack in Mandera as they attempted to escape. Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri has urged all Kenyans to be extra vigilant during this festive season. Sharon Momanyi, KTN News.
A survey by Ipsos Synovate indicates that Kenyans are dissatisfied by the manner in which police respond to crime. 54% of those interviewed by the pollster cite weak or lack of investigation follow-up on reported cases and corruption as their reasons. This as the majority still believe that the Kenya Defence Forces should stay on in Somalia to shield the country from Al-Shabaab incursions. KTN's Samogina now reports.
Of those sampled in the Ipsos Synovate survey, 54% recorded their dissatisfaction with the way the police handle crime, while 20% were either somewhat or completely satisfied. Only 6% were not sure. Those not satisfied with police work indicted the uniform force of either weak investigations or police not following up of their cases completely at 55%. Corruption was ranked at 22%, while others cited slow or no response to reported crimes at all for their frustration at 19%. Crime rates in the last 3 months is highly recorded within Nairobi at 16%, while Central, Coast and Western regions recorded 9% crime rates. In Nyanza and Rift Valley, crime was at 8%. On the way in Somalia, majority of Kenyans approve the continued stay of the Kenya Defence Forces in Somalia. 55% of those polled support KDF's presence in Somalia against 42% who are opposed. Majority of those backing KDF's incursion are drawn from the Jubilee supporters, while CORD supporters rate highly for those disapproving Kenya's stay in Somalia. There is general consensus that Al-Shabaab remains a great threat to the country's security at 62%. But ironically, despite suffering the greatest brunt of Al-Shabaab attacks, Northeastern region rates Al-Shabaab threat to security at only 55%, while the Eastern region rates highly Al-Shabaab threat levels at 72%, Coast and the Western regions ranking the threat levels posed by Al-Shabaab to the country's security at 69%. Kenyans feel enhanced intelligence will be essential in stemming the Al-Shabaab activities. 24% think sending more troops to Somalia would be the answer, while 24% feel a total withdrawal of KDF troops will help reduce Al-Shabaab attacks on Kenya.
Police in Nairobi are on the hunt for a middle-aged man suspected to have murdered his girlfriend and abandoned her body in a house at Nairobi's Nyayo estate in Embakasi. The 24-year-old woman is reported to have last spoken to her parents over a week ago.
Zote mkitoa mtupe hapa ndani. Unatoa kitubo huko ndani.
Wakati wa mwisho kuongea na msichana wangu na wakati tulishinda vizuri ni tarehe 12 Jamhuri Day. shida kwa nyumba, tukiwa na sherehe tu ya sikukuu. Basi baada ya sikukuu, siku 2-3, Monday, Tuesday hivyo, akatoka tu kama kawaida tu, akatoka tu. Basi na tukasikia tu, tukajua amekuja kwa kijana tu. Basi sasa sisi kupiga simu ni mteja, lakini simu inalia, lakini hakuna mtu anachukua. Sasa ilibidi tu jana tupigie mama huyu kijana, kwa sababu pia na yeye anakaa hapa. Ndio hivyo asubuhi ametuambia amechukua polisi, wakavuja nyumba, wamepata msichana yuko ameuawa.
Police in Embakasi say they have launched investigations into the incident. Now, a number of Kenyans are yearning to cycle to and from work in order to overcome the challenges that come with traffic congestion, including time wasting. However, Nairobi remains one of the most unsafe cities for this mode of transport due to lack of dedicated cycling lanes. KTN's special correspondent Alex Chamwada sought to find out what the relevant authorities are doing about it and whether Nairobi can become a cycling city.
Despite the challenges that come with cycling in Nairobi city and its environs, there are some residents who dare cycle anyway.
I keep it.
Kevin Iteba, a student at St. Paul's University who lives in Rongai, is one of them. Cycling is his main mode of transport. He resorted to using this means after realizing that it was cheaper, less time-consuming, and convenient to commute to the central business district.
Someone that knows what to do, anachukua baiskeli, then you maximize your time well. You have that 1 hour to cycle. So when you wake up around 6:30, you are out. By 7:30, you are in town.
However, cycling in Nairobi comes with many challenges.
There are no cycling lanes in Kenya. And the next one is that you are highly mistreated by the people who are going at a higher speed.
Kevin has turned cycling into a hobby. We followed him all the way from Ongata Rongai. Surprisingly, not much traffic on this day. On his back, a bag containing clothes for changing once he arrives in the city. He told us that he takes 1 hour on a day full of traffic to reach town as compared to a motorist who will take more than 2 hours. With rising urbanization, planners say cities need modern mobility solutions, and moving around 2 wheels is one of them. A challenge to authorities to invest in bicycle infrastructure. Navigating through traffic is not easy for Kevin. He is now on Uhuru Highway. The good thing is that he will leave many motorists behind anyway. At the Bunyala roundabout, confusion, as nobody thought about the place of the cyclist on the road. The National Transport and Safety Authority says it will no longer be business as usual. All contractors will now be required to think about the cyclist.
If you look at all the new roads that are coming, and the example that we want to give is the roads along Kileleshwa, walkways and for passengers, for pedestrians and cyclists have been designed very well. And I think that's the future that we need to see, because you must separate the non-motorized mode of transport and the motorized mode of transport.
Like Kevin, Samuel Gidhui cycles too from Kawangware.
Na prefer kupitia njia Kileleshwa juu tukipitia Gong Road haina cycling lane. Kwa hivyo inahatarisha maisha yetu kama sisi cyclists.
In the developed world, infrastructure is well developed to accommodate cycling.
We encourage our governor to move away from just people doing pavements to doing proper cycling lanes, where things like being splashed by rainwater, being splashed by dirty water, you know, those things are not part of my mind. I can walk out of my house and comfortably get into my bicycle without fearing whether I'll be dirty.
In the meantime, Kevin has arrived at his final destination, St. Paul's University, near Railways Roundabout in the CBD. Parking for cyclists can be a big headache, but he is lucky to have space at the basement of Church House.
If you have to be in Geneva City, you find within the equivalent of Uhuru Highway, the equivalent of Kenyatta Highway, the equivalent of Wabera Street, Kauda Street, you have points where bicycles are parked, the normal bicycles. So you find people will cycle into the city, leave their bicycle, rock it, walk into the office.
So for that dream to be realized, the safety of cyclists is paramount. For KTN News, I'm Alex Chamwada.
In other news, Deputy President William Ruto today met with political leaders from Western Kenya in what appeared as a mission to rope them in to support the newly formed Jubilee Party. The Deputy President asked the leaders, among them Bungoma Governor Ken Lusaka, to join in the campaign, saying it aimed at bringing to an end what he referred to as an era of ethnic balkanization and regional political parties.
A day after playing host to over 6,000 leaders from the Rift Valley region in his Sugoi home, the Deputy President's mission on the crystallization of the Jubilee Party saw him host a section of leaders from the Western region. A delegation of new Ford Kenya leaders, led by Bungoma Governor Ken Lusaka and Water and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa, were leading the pack in endorsing the merging of Jubilee affiliate parties into the Jubilee Party.
Zote tuko katika nchi hii, tukiwa jamii mbalimbali, kutoka sehemu mbalimbali, tukiwa watu wa dini mbalimbali, sote tuko Kenya, sio kwa bahati mbaya, sio kwa makosa, kwa mapenzi ya Mungu. Na ni jukumu letu sisi kama Wakenya kutafuta mbinu na namna ya vile tutaishi na kupanga mambo yetu ya Kenya kwa pamoja.
The Deputy President pushed for the winding up of Jubilee affiliate parties, saying this would pave way for mature politics devoid of ethnic and regional bearing.
Kila Mkenya ambayo anaamini ya kwamba Kenya hii inafaa kuwa bora, anaamini ya kwamba hakuna faida yoyote tutakayopata kwa kugawanyika, kwa kuweka chuki baina yetu, kwa kuweka mipaka ya ukabila, kwa kubagua wale wa dini hii na wa dini ile. There is no benefit, there is no use, there is no profit.
There was a general consensus among the leaders on forging ahead with the Jubilee Party set to be launched in March 2016 by President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, their party for future elections.
Na tunaamini kwamba umoja wa nchi hii ni ya muhimu sana. Na tumeona mahali umoja unaweza kutupeleka. Nataka nikuhakikishie kwamba tukitoka hapa, kitu ya muhimu sisi tukiwa viongozi kutoka mashinani ni kazi inaanza sahihi.
Ukitoka kwa rais, the second in command ni deputy. Ukitoka hapo, the next in command kwa katiba ya Kenya ni nani? Nilikuwa nimepewa nambari katika hii team. I was number 3 in this team. Na nyinyi mkanitoa kwa lineup.
Jamii hii na jamii ile, sehemu hii bishana na sehemu ile, dini hii na mambo kama haya. Na sababu hiyo ndio inatufanya tuketi chini vile tulivyo sasa na kufikiria kama Wakenya, ni vipi tutaungana, ni vipi tutafanya kazi pamoja, ni vipi tutaondoa tofauti, ubaguzi, ukabila, kugawanya katika sehemu baina ya Wakenya, kwa sababu Kenya hii bado ni moja. Tupende, tusipende, this is our country.
The leaders were drawn from Bungoma, Trans Nzoia, Vihiga and Kakamega counties. Nonetheless, the merger has been opposed by a section of URP and KANU leaders. Samogina, KTN News.
Now mentioned Constituency Development Fund, CDF, and you're likely to provoke heated debate on the management of the funds. Well, Kibra has been cited as the constituency with the best managed CDF this year. KTN's Zinzi Kibiku tells us why.
The constituency's development fund dedicates a minimum of 2.5% of the national government ordinary fund. The CDF recognized top 3 constituencies on how they performed on recommended projects.
Member of Parliament, and you are not part of conducting implementation. Ensure you are keeping our constituencies, fund committees on their toes through ensuring constant oversight for you to be able to achieve. When they achieve, the people achieve. The best evaluated constituency nationally, believe you me, is none other than Kibra.
The whole objective is to ensure that each constituency is measured. There is a mechanism of measuring their performance so that they themselves, based on the targets that they set and agreed with the board, they can be able to review how they perform for the purpose of continuous improvement.
The constituency's development fund's main goal is to highlight development needs at the grassroots level. Now, whether Kibra deserved first place, I'll let you be the judge of that. But one thing's for sure, some of the residents here are singing a different tune in regards to their new award.
CDF imesaidia na maji. Sahii tunaweza pata maji bei rahisi, 3 bob, 2 bob, na pia hospitali pia iko watu wanaenda tu bure. Kama unachukua dawa, unachukua tu dawa bure bila kitu ya kulipa.
Shule imejenga hizo macho, maji, barabara. Hata hii barabara ya Olympic imeharibika hapa, lakini nasikia washasema watajenga. Sana sana hiyo maji imesaidia juu bei ya hiyo maji ni cheaper. 2 bob, 3 bob na hizi zingine ni 5 bob, 10 bob. Lakini hiyo ya CDF wakijenga ni 3 bob, 2 bob.
But then we meet Cyprina Witi. She has been in the business of selling roasted maize for 13 years. And for her, the CDF hasn't been fully utilized.
Hospitali pia, mnatakana mtu kuenda hospitali. Maskini sinaenda taka tibiwe tu apatiwe dawa. Hapa sasa naitisa pesa. Hata uko kwa wanga. Silikuwa ya CDF. Saa hii anataka pesa. Wa maskini kama sisi takuwa namna gani? Utatibua aje?
Next door is Kennedy. Kennedy believes that Kibra's leaders have helped the community. Nevertheless, he tells me there are gray areas that need more attention.
Tokea watu wakiwa mgonjwa, hata ambulance iwezi ingia, nyumba ikichomeka, fire nini, magari ya fire iwezi ikaingia mzuri. Sasa ile kitu tunahitaji hapa ni hospitali na barabara.
The CDF board put all 290 constituencies on the performance contract. For the Kibra constituency, hosting one of the biggest slums in Africa, winning this year's development fund evaluation is a milestone. Zinzi Kibiku, KTN News.
Well done to Kibra. Agriculture Secretary Willie Bett has formally announced the waiver on charges for drying maize delivered to the National Cereals and Produce Board depots by farmers across the country. The move follows President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive during his recent tour of the North Rift region that farmers should be allowed to deliver produce and drying costs be met by the board. Masikandia reports from Uasin Gishu County.
After harvesting, open spaces along the roads or in the fields would be vital for any farmer as they struggle to dry their maize harvest to reduce the moisture content to 13% as required by the National Cereals and Produce Board for storage. It would require constant turning of the grain to ensure it dries well. That would be a cheaper option than to take to the NCPB for drying, where they would be charged. But as from today, this hassle will not be necessary as the government has waived charges for drying maize.
Strategic Food Reserve Oversight Board set aside 156 million Kenya shillings to take care of that waiver. And if some more will still be required, they will still look at that. But already we have money to sort out the issue of drying. So from today, all the farmers can bring their crop to the board and it will be dried for free.
El Nino-related rains during harvesting had even occasioned post-harvesting losses, as most small-scale farmers could not afford drying charges, while most of them lack good storage facilities. That announcement by the Cabinet Secretary should be good news to most farmers here. Remember, many farmers here have been complaining of challenges with regard to maize farming, from the high cost of input to what has been attributed to 20% in loss of produce as a result of post-harvesting challenges like poor storage. But to some farmers, the news about the waiver of drying charges for maize produce was not as exciting. To them, the government should have prioritized the issue of maize pricing.
So wakulima wako hapa na shida kubwa sana. Ukiona pricing na inputs yenye wameweka, they cannot meet the subsidies yenye wameweka. So the price is becoming an issue. Even though drying is not a problem. When we take maize to the cereal board, they take even 2 weeks or 1 month. So when we take to millers, they pay immediately, 24 hours, open check.
Before the announcement of the waiver of maize drying charges, farmers have been paying 34 shillings per drop of 1% in moisture content in every 90 kg bag of maize. Due to the heavy rains, some farmers have been delivering produce at high moisture content of up to 18%, thus reducing their profit margins. Mercy Kandie, KTN News, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County.
It's an age-old tradition during Christmas time in parts of Western Kenya. Mud huts get a facelift complete with a fresh coat of paint. But the tradition is dying fast in a region that is embracing permanent housing. But not for Fanis Musimbi. The resident of Shimanyiro in Kakamega County has given her house a makeover and tells us that she and her house are ready for Christmas.
Lusembe, a relatively small village hemmed in Shimanyiro sublocation, Kakamega County, at this time of the year is harvest green. Houses stone throws apart, some semi-permanent but most of the traditional mud hut. Early morning Friday, we meet the young children of Fanis Musumbi on their way to a wetland not too far from their hut. Fanis tells us that this was built 5 years ago and it's important to give it a makeover.
Tunajaribu kuirenew, yani ionekane mpya. Isikae tu mbaya hivyo, ionekane smart. Disemba sasa kila kitu kiangalia iko smart, watu wako smart, wameng'ara, hata nyumba sasa nitakane kuwe smart.
Kuboma, as it is called here, is an elaborate process. Fresh mud is mixed with cow dung. Fanis rebuilds her house with her own hands. Her children labor with her like foot soldiers. This takes the whole day. They need all the help they can get. When the mud runs out, they have to get more. We come back the next day and the house looks as good as new. But it's just the beginning. It's now time for the colors. This year, the children wanted a deep caramel sand. Last year, they had something close to oxblood red, they tell us. Her daughter Joy takes control this time and brings the essential: tamblong raw bananas, charcoal paste, green pumpkin leaves and an old toothbrush. Mother and daughter start by smearing the colored mud, creating vertical and horizontal lines across and along the freshly remudded hut. This is how Fanis learned from her mother. Then with the banana, Joy outlines the freshly drawn lines. Then it's time to make the pictures and design the walls.
Unaweza chora vitu kulingana na hii mwezi yenyewe ya Disemba. Inaweza isha yenyewe ama unaongeza udongo. Lakini inaweza kaa hata miaka miwili. Yani ikifika hiyo Disemba unaweza boma ama ukae tu hivyo.
Others would paint flowers that would outlive the festive season. Tradition that has been handed down from generation to generation. I remember growing up as a child here in Kakamega, and we would do this every December and the New Year. But now things have changed. Houses have become permanent, semi-permanent, and you'd imagine what would happen if your landlord found you painting your house over Christmas. And after all the labor, their house is now ready, they say, for Christmas and for the New Year. It's not all about Christmas designs. Fanis' elder son is a great fan of Chelsea and Jose Mourinho. He insisted both find their place in the wall. We walked on end in the village and very few people were keeping the tradition. Some say it's now outdated and don't see its value. Others disagree. Permanent housing is becoming a mainstay, and there are children born and raised here who have never taken part in the decoration. Lena Lirungu lives in the neighboring Ibutsi Shola. There are houses with decorations that bear mute witness to more than 5 years. One is even a posho mill.
Anapozaliwa atapate kama nyumba zetu ziko safi. Kazi inafanya na wanawake na immediately vile nitaoa pia atakuwa anafanya hivyo.
For Fanis, this tradition is valuable. Her house, she believes, will be an attraction for a while. And even when she eventually builds a permanent one, she will keep this one and the colors that come with Christmas. Dorcas Wangira, KTN News, Kakamega.
Thanks for keeping it, KTN. Time to catch up with the latest from the business world. My name is Abi Agina. The Central Bank Governor, Dr. Patrick Njoroge, has said that Kenyans can expect marginal rises in inflation as price stability of goods continues to settle in. November inflation currently stands at 7.32%. This, according to Dr. Njoroge, is within the set target band of 2.5% to 7.5%. The country has been facing a tighter monetary policy, which stabilized the shilling by close of trading, where commercial banks quoted it at 102.24 to the US dollar. The central bank governor, while addressing a news conference, also reaffirmed that the bank was committed towards boosting bank supervision capacity and improving the skills and capacity of officers involved with supervising banks at the central bank. Moving forward, the governor says banks should expect implementation of more rigorous rules in banking sector that will ensure the future stability of banks in Kenya. Despite Kenya's banking sector remaining resilient, the sector is yet to consider these issues.
And looking more at the long-term, medium-term prospects and betting in the economy long-term.
Well, 8 containers bearing illegal sugar worth an estimated 20 million shillings has been nabbed by Kenya Revenue officers at the port of Mombasa. The sugar, which was destined for the local market, is reported to have been imported by a high-profile individual in the country. KRA officials told KTN that the sugar was allegedly imported from Brazil and it arrived at the port of Mombasa in September this year from Dubai in the UAE. It is claimed that the sugar was misdeclared, then packed in plastic bags by a local customs agent to evade tax. According to KRA Chief Officer in charge of container freight stations, Peter Nganga, the taxman could have lost up to 16 million shillings, in taxes at the cargo past the checkpoints. The consignment was declared as transit cargo destined for Uganda, but KRA investigations indicate that the sugar was to be sold in the local market. The taxman says that all transit cargo passing through Kenya will also be placed on around-the-clock surveillance using electronic cargo tracking systems. Talks of reviving the defunct Kenya Petroleum Refinery in Mombasa could be in the offing, according to the newly appointed Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, Charles Keter. Keter, who took over the docket from Davis Chirchir following a cabinet shake-up that edged out officers deemed to be corrupt, says he is keen on fast-tracking the actualization of the refinery as well as realization of 5,000 megawatt power plant set out by the Jubilee administration. KTN's Ashley Mazuri examines items on the in-tray for the CS, with public expectation being on the high.
The once operational Kenya Petroleum Refineries Limited, based at Coast, could be roaring back to life if discussions around the project are concluded. According to Energy Cabinet Secretary Charles Keter, this, among other issues, will be top of his agenda as he takes over the mantle at the all-powerful Energy Ministry.
We need to create also the demand, be it having the industries and whatnot. And finally, we need to have quality power, sustainable quality power.
KPRL was the sole refinery in the region, primarily protected by a mandatory requirement for Kenyan downstream oil marketers to uplift at least 40% of their domestic requirements from the facility. KPRL was designed as a simple hydro-skimming refinery which does not have an upgrade option and was now being considered as a storage facility with the capacity of 192,000 cubic meters. Lack of significant domestic reserves of fossil fuels has left the cost of petroleum products at the mercy of market forces, leaving consumers exposed to price changes. KTN notes that he will also be pushing for the successful implementation of the 5,000 megawatts of power to the national grid by 2017. However, the situation is changing as the discovery of oil reserves and geothermal energy in Kenya has led to a 30% drop in the cost of power. Kenya has set ambitious targets for scaling up energy, with a number of projects such as the standard gauge railway and the coal plant having been pegged on sustainable and affordable power.
That initiative, which is very critical, as you know, the country still have power shortage, and we believe that program will continue.
KTN says the current number of people connected to the grid is far small. He will be eyeing to boost connections from the current 50% to 80%. For the last 8 months, the acting cabinet secretary in the Ministry of Energy, Henry Rotich, ensured that Kenya tapped 57% of hydropower, about 32% thermal energy, geothermal energy and emergency thermal power at 10%, and 1% on solar PV and wind power. Ashley Mazuri, KTN Business.
And Family Bank has secured financing from the European Investment Bank barely 2 weeks after receiving a similar facility from Netherlands financier Oiko Credit International. The bank has received 3.3 billion shillings to provide lower-cost long-term loans to small and medium-sized businesses in Kenya. This is the second tranche by the European lender, with the first tranche of 2 billion having been secured 2 years ago. Family Bank Managing Director Peter Munyiri says the second tranche by the European Investment Bank was a stamp of approval of the bank's SME support business model. As the dust settles just after the end of the 10th World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference, emphasis is now on how soon can countries kickstart implementation of the key resolutions. Well, I had an exclusive interview with the Cabinet Secretary for Industrialization, Aidan Mohammed, on what next after WTO.
To say that Kenya as a country, for example, has ratified the trade facilitation agreement. And what this means is to improve the movements of goods between countries as a way of facilitating trade. This is a really important aspect we have in our own region of East Africa, we've been taking active, roles in making sure that that is simplified with or without WTO. But what is being asked here is to see whether we can get as many countries as possible to also ratify this trade facilitation, so that when goods move from one country to another, non-tariff barriers are not imposed to slow down some of those activities.
What percentages do you feel that by lifting these barriers to trade, we can be able to more than double the trade volumes for Kenya, as well as intra-African, really?
So a key part of what we are working on, what we have ratified, is the trade facilitation, which we believe will improve the level of trade by somewhere between 15 to 20%.
Wow.
If we only made it possible for goods to move easier than it has been between border X and border Y. So I think there are issues of market access, but even where there are market access, I think the level of ease of movements has been wanting, and some of the commitments that have been made in ratifying trade facilitation is so critical, and we really want to encourage countries to be able to make that happen as a way of improving our trade activities globally.
A day after World Football Governing Body FIFA's Ethics Committee handed FIFA President Sepp Blatter and UEFA President Michel Platini an 8-year ban, analysts have come out saying it is the end of the road for the embattled FIFA president. Others, however, have shown sympathy to Blatter, revealing or saying that Blatter helped in developing world football.
I am now suspended 8 years. Suspended 8 years. But I will fight. I will fight for me and I will fight for FIFA. Suspended 8 years for what?
Those were the reactions of FIFA President Sepp Blatter after learning of FIFA's Ethics Committee banning him and UEFA President Michel Platini from football and football-related activities for a period of 8 months. With Blatter set to appeal the ban, some of the stakeholders in football feel this is the end of the road for Blatter, who has been in the World Football Governing Body for almost 40 years. Former chairman of the English Football Association, David Bernstein, believes the lengthy ban imposed on Blatter signaled the end for the head of World Soccer's governing body.
And for Mr. Blatter, this is not the end of the road by any means, because he has the Swiss authorities to face and he has the American authorities to face. So he's got a lot of issues ahead.
Football politics expert Kia Radnage believes it is impossible to see Blatter at the presidential elections in February following the ban, despite Blatter saying he'll make an appeal.
Says he wants to be presiding over the election of his successor on February the 26th. It's impossible to see, even if he got his appeals done, how.
Some have expressed sympathy for the embattled FIFA chief.
For FIFA, it's very, very tragic for Sepp Blatter, because he worked greatly in these 40 years. I mean, he expanded football, he turned it into international sports, but he held on to his power way too long, and at the end it was just about power and not about football anymore.
It's sad because people's image of him was what a wonderful footballer he was, but I think maybe you can say that perhaps trying to play the political game in the end proved too difficult.
With France set to host the Euros next year, some believe it's a blow to UEFA and Platini, who was expected to run for FIFA presidency next year. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
Says no, there's nothing they're doing for the interest of the country. And another one here from Marita Miriera says the soldiers should only come back after Somali has established a stable government there. Amos Kitui, withdrawing our troops in Somalia is a sign of cowardice. KDF should remain in Somalia. And finally, Moya Joyce on Twitter says yes, they should, until Somalia's government lays proper mechanisms for its interior security and border. Many thanks for your responses, your SMSs and tweets, and thank you for your company. That's KTN Prime. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from the KTN News Center.